All right, let's take a walkthrough of our brand new AWS account. Now, you're going to log in as root and use your MFA password, passcode, whatever you set up to get to this point. Now, before long, we're not going to be using our root account very much anymore at all because it's a best practice to not use the root account because it's so powerful. And we should only really use it for special occasions. I don't mean weddings and holidays. I mean that there is something that you just absolutely cannot do with what is going to be called your IAM user. And yes, all the cloud providers have this concept of IAM. It stands for Identity and Access Management. It's just more or less a philosophy or a thing rather than a specific service. So we're going to cover that in a separate skill. But here we are. You're going to be landed at this main page here. You probably won't have any of this stuff over here because this is going to populate based on what you visit. You're going to have some applications over here that doesn't really apply to us. We're going to scroll down here. You're going to see any sort of open issues, any sort of service issues that AWS has either planned or that are currently under investigation or underway. Maybe they have an outage or something like that. Over here, we have our cost and usage. This is going to be your running tally for your monthly costs. Scrolling down here, they're going to give us some other documentation here. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that these things have these little dots here. That means you can grab them and move them around. So you can customize your home screen here. If you don't like what you're seeing, you can customize it. As a matter of fact, let me do that right now. I'm going to remove that widget because I never used applications, and I'm going to just bring cost up right here, kind of above the fold, as they say. So that as soon as I log in, I'm going to have my cost sitting right there. I can add widgets if I wanted to find some other widgets here, but we're not going to do any of that right now. Now, probably one of the most important areas on the screen, let me blow this up some more, is this button right here. I know it doesn't look like a button, but it is the AWS Console Home. This is your, I need an adult, get me out of here. If you get totally lost in navigating through AWS, just go up here and hit this little AWS button, and it's going to bring you right back to home right here. So if we keep on going over here to the right, we click on this, it's going to give us a little list here. And this is a list of all the different services. So you can click on that, click on that, click on that, and you get the services. So if we wanted to go into one of the services, we can go into Amazon Manage Blockchain, click on that, and it is going to take us to that service. Aha. So this is a good call out right here. So one of the things you're going to have to realize about cloud providers is not all the services are available in all the regions. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Maybe there's geographic restrictions. Maybe they just don't have that infrastructure built out to the level that it needs to support that service. So this happens across all cloud providers. So we're getting a message here that says this region is unsupported. I forgot what region I was in, but anyway, it gives us a list of supported regions. So if we still want to go to that service, oh, here we are. I was in the Ohio region. So if we still want to go to that service, I can click on a supported region, and it's going to take me to that service. And you see up here, Amazon Blockchain. This is kind of the main landing page of that service. So help, I need to get back to the main console. How do I do that? Click on this button right here. There we go, back to the main console. So you can kind of peruse through these services here, this list. And then we also have this search. And this is how generally I look up stuff because I'm not going to go through this list and find stuff. So I'm just going to start typing stuff. So if we type in blockchain, so you can see we have different things that popped up. We have that service, and we can click on that and get to the same place, but we have these other categories here. We have some features, we have some resources, we have some documentation on blockchain and tutorials and marketplace. Now that's something that's kind of interesting with AWS is that they have a marketplace where third-party companies can build services, and then they can send those services out to the marketplace, and you could subscribe to those services, and most of them are pay-per-use, something like that. You can subscribe to those services and use those in your own AWS account. So we also have some blog posts here and events. If they have any sort of virtual workshops, which it looks like they do, learn how to mint NTFs on Ethereum. And so we could check that out if we wanted to. So if you just start typing stuff, it kind of auto-completes, for example. If I type in EC2, which we will learn about in another skill, you can see it's a virtual servers in the cloud. And there's this little star over here. So that's a little star that you can bookmark it or you can favorite it. And it's going to appear on this little toolbar up here. These are some services that I've been using recently for another project. And you can see I bookmarked them. So to unbookmark them, all you have to do is call them up here. And then you can click that little star and you see that service went away. Okay, moving right along to the left here, we have something called CloudShell. Now this is really handy. So it's like a little mini, almost a little mini computer, a little mini terminal station here. You remember our conversations around the VT100 terminal and the terminal sessions. Well, this is a little virtual machine that lives right here in our console, and we can invoke it. So we can click that little button and it's going to start up. So if I enlarge this here, I can say list, there, oops, list, there we go. So you can see this is let me see if I can enlarge this a bit. Large, there we go. There we go, nice. So this is a little Linux system, a tiny little Linux system that has the AWS CLI, command line interface. Remember that from our first video. It has it built in, and it has several other utilities built in as well, like Python and some network troubleshooting tools and stuff like that. So it's really handy if you don't want to spin up or create a virtual machine of a Linux system just to execute a command, or you don't want to do it from your home system or your work system. So when you're done with this little CloudShell, you can just hit this X and it'll go away. Moving right along, here we have some notifications. Now, there are certain notifications that we can set up. We can say, hey, AWS, notify us if there is some sort of problem, some sort of event that affects our system. We also have user configured notifications and AWS managed notifications. These are generally health notifications. And by health, I mean it's the health of the system, health of the AWS network, and so forth. So if there was anything going on with our account, we'd probably have a little number up here. We could click on that and see what was going on. Moving right along, we have the international question mark. I bet you can guess what this is for. Support. That's right. So there's different types of support here. They have a support center. We can get some expert help. We can do repost. And in AWS, that's basically like a Discord or a forum type thing where you can go out there and post a question or a problem. And other users will help you out. You also have a link to documentation. You have a link to training. And if you're really searching for stuff, how to get started, you can go to this Getting Started Resource Center. And that has a lot of great stuff for beginners that are just starting out with AWS. So you can see some videos down here, pretty nifty. All right, back here, we have this little gear. What's that mean? Well, that allows us to change our visual mode, light or dark. And if we want to see all user settings here, we can see what our display is, our setting. Remember recently visited set services, that sort of thing. There's not a whole lot to see down here. So help, again, how do I get back to my console? Go up here, click that AWS link right there. All right, moving right along. Hey, look at that. We've seen this before. This is our list of regions. So if I click on AP Southeast 1, suddenly I am transported into Singapore. I am in Singapore right now. The screen that we are looking at, or at least the services behind the screen that we're looking at, is in Singapore. So if I wanted to go back, I just click that little drop down and go back to Northern Virginia or Ohio. Generally speaking, when you're talking about a cloud provider, you're probably going to be using a region that is geographically closest to you, and then maybe use other regions if you service customers in those other regions and you want those resources to be close to them as well. So that's how we can change a region. Now, one of the things you'll notice here is that we have a message down here that says there are 15 regions that are not enabled for this count. Well, AWS doesn't enable all the regions for every account just because it would clutter up this list a lot. Plus, there's some regions that you need special permission to be able to enable. So they just don't do that by default. Okay, moving right along, we have this little drop down right here. Now yours may say something different. It's probably going to say whatever name you gave your AWS account. And So this has our account, this has our organization, service quotas, and billing and cost management. So account is just account information. And if we're a part of a larger organization, we can access that stuff right here. Now, I do want to talk about service quotas because this is something that all the cloud providers have in one way or another. Cloud providers do not provide us with an all-you-can-eat buffet of everything that we can possibly use, because if they did that, they may run out of resources and deprive somebody who needs those resources of being able to access those resources. So in most cases, they implement what they call service quotas, and that just means you're given a certain number of whatever the thing is. And if you need more, you can ask for more. In most cases, they're more than happy to grant you access to more. But it's just their way to kind of meter things and make sure that somebody doesn't use up all the resources in a particular region or availability zone. So we can go out here to AWS Services. Let's see, I'll pick on EC2. Elastic Compute Cloud. So let's say we have different instance types. And so you can see right here in my account, I have certain instance types that I am not just automatically given the ability to use. Why is that? Well, these instance types right here are very specialized. For example, the G and the VT, those are GPU-based instances. Same thing here with the P4, P3, and P2. These are GPU-based instances. So they're kind of pricey, and they're in high demand because a lot of people were doing everything from graphic design to artificial intelligence development to Bitcoin mining on AWS, and they use these resources. So to get access to one of these resources, I have to request it. So I can come out here and request an increase at account level and say, hey, how many do I want? I just want one, and I can request it there. I don't need this resource, so I'm not going to request it. But that's pretty common across cloud providers, is that they have this idea of service quotas. And you may run into a situation where you're dealing with something that's auto-scaling. In other words, that you have set up some logic that a service or a system just kind of automatically grows as the workload continues to increase, and maybe for some strange reason that growth stops. Well, one of the things to look at are service quotas. Maybe you've reached the end of your service quota and have to request an increase. So we're going to go back out to the console here, AWS button up there. And so we are going to be going into billing and cost management in the next skill, because in that skill, we are going to be talking about the economics of the cloud.